Hi friends, I'm Nicholas Acciani. Let's talk backstage. This video is all about working with a lighting designer as a director. Now this isn't going to be a lecture on what lighting design is, that's a whole nother video that I could do, but rather what we need to know as a director or someone who works with a lighting designer to be able to communicate our needs and work together with that designer artistically. So we talked about working with a scenic designer in another video, which is all about the physical world and things that we can actually see and touch. The lighting design is more slightly ethereal, suggestive maybe. I don't have quite the right word for that. What I mean is that lighting, it's a real thing, but you can't touch light. You can see it, but the design is less of a physical thing like the set, but it still affects how everything works. So how do we talk about that to be able to communicate with someone what we need from the lights when we don't really have the words? First, we need to realize what lighting does, other than practically making everything visible, because that's what light does. Turn off all the lights and you can't see anything. But the biggest thing that it can do for a piece, for a show, is set the mood and atmosphere of the piece. And not just of the overall show. I mean, yes, the overall show, but also from scene to scene. And those are two specifics you want to be sure about, scene to scene and overall show. So while the mood from one scene may be different than the other, the overall atmosphere of the play, which can also be that overall mood of the play, will connect the different moods of the scenes to make sure that everything works as one cohesive whole. So let's break that down and talk about the overall show first. Like the scenic design, you need to know what kind of piece it is. Is it super realistic, where the lighting needs to match an actual office building or an outdoor park? Or is it abstract, where you can have shafts of light coming from anywhere? Or is it somewhere in between? A slapstick comedy might be very bright overall, while a glass menagerie might be a little darker and more dramatic. Every show, every work is different, and it will be different for every director as well, based on their vision. So think back to the tone of the play's attitude. From there, we can glean what the overall atmosphere needs to be, and talking in terms of feelings and colors is extremely helpful. At least it has been for me. So saying this piece is a happy play.
Happy is way too vague of a feeling. There are so many ways to be happy. So we need to get a little more specific.
Maybe it's nostalgic and needs to feel like an old sepia photo. There's a warmth to the show, or maybe there's a coldness to it. The world is stark and bare. All of these analogies, all of these feelings will give a lighting designer a base on how to light each scene. And then from there, we can talk about color palette. This is a little different than the color palette of the set because color plays differently in lights than it does in like paint. So think about something like The Wizard of Oz. That may have a lot of bold and saturated colors, while a play like The Crucible may be more subdued because there's no magic to it. That's a weird thing because there is magic in The Crucible, but is there? I mean, that's the whole like discussion of the play on a much deeper and more societal level. But you need to know how the light plays off the set. So at this point, knowing the set design, or at least the beginning ideas, will also help the lighting designer know how to light that world. So we as directors want to be consistent with what we tell each designer and let them build off of each other. Most of the times we begin with the set. That's the first designer that we're talking to. Then we add in the lights and costumes. But honestly, no matter where you start, they all do need to build off each other and play off each other. And it's your job as director to make sure that they have a cohesive vision to work under. So we also want to talk about the quality of the light. Is it harsh? Do we see a lot of shadows? Do we see sharp edges in the shadows or soft lines, and why? How does that quality of light interact with the themes of the play? Can we use the light to represent something? These are all questions. This entire video is basically all questions that you need to ask yourself as the director, and those answers are what's going to fuel the lighting design and fuel the lighting designer's creative interpretation to be able to give you what you need for the show. Sometimes we may need it to be simply an extension of the world, but sometimes we can really collaborate and play with our designer and turn the lighting into its own statement, and those are really exciting shows. Say you want those sharp lines and edges between the light and shadow. That might help you represent a government that cares more about rules and structure than its actual people. Maybe themes of the show are a little less black and white, so you need softer shadows to show that things can lie in between. And coming in with these ideas, but being open to conversation, will let you and your designer discover together exactly how to make this show happen. Which means some of the analogies that you used with your scenic designer can be used again with the lighting designer, because there is a bit of that crossover in terms of what they need to do and accomplish, because the lighting doesn't need to just light the actors, it needs to light the set as well. So that conversation with the lighting designer, you might include the scenic designer. I, as a scenic designer, love to have those three-way conversations with the director and the lighting designer, because I love to incorporate lights into my set, because they help bring the set alive, which is all a part of that collaboration between all your designers and director to build the show and build onto the show and make it better. So that's a quick breakdown of the overall show. So then we want to talk scene to scene and practicals. Practicals meaning what kind of physical lights do we actually see on stage? Maybe it's a table lamp, a gas light. Light comes from a source. source. And your designer needs to know what those sources are to be able to design from and actually be able to light. I mean, if it's a light on stage, it should light up, right? Otherwise, people are going to wonder, why is that light not lighting up? So that's what the practicals are, what you actually physically need to see in terms of the light source. But then, what do you need in each scene? What is the mood? What are the specials that you need? So in film, when a character has a monologue or a deep moment, we can cut in close to their face. We can't do that on stage. But the lighting designer can focus down the lights, so everything else can turn off except for that one spot, maybe on their face. So the audience's focus is on that tiny close moment with the actor. And it's usually a spotlight or dimming other parts of the stage. There are many, many ways to do that, to accomplish that. And it's your job as a director to know where in the script that happens and have an idea of the style, but it's the designer's job to know exactly how to make that happen. And if you've communicated the world properly and you communicated your vision, then your designer will know and be able to creatively enact how you focus and give you those effects. And the main thing that I want to stress here is that each scene ties into and lives in the same world, before and after. If you don't have that, you lose that connection and the play begins to feel disjointed and lost. So the lighting, like the set, like the acting, has to be consistent. And that is one of the biggest jobs for the director, is to shepherd that creative vision that ties everything together. So that's all I have for beginning to work with lighting designers. If you think I missed something, or if you like to do things a little differently as a designer or director, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Otherwise, hopefully you learned something, and I'll see you next time. Bye, friends! These videos are made for educational purposes. Hopefully you learned something or reinforced something you may already know. Now, this is just one way to do this, and there may be other ways to do what I've explained in this video, and I would love to hear about those ways in the comments. Just remember to be kind as you share your own experiences and expertise on the subject. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and hit that little bell button to be notified of the next video.